The new normal in public transportation shows a familiar sight as more and more commuters brave long lines. Some people, on the other hand, resort to alternative modes of transportation. May 2022 inflation rate sizzles to a 42-month high. COVID-19 cases are also showing a slight uptick, but the Octa Research Group says there's no need to panic. And LaSalle is now 1 inch closer to a twice-to-beat advantage after a thriller 5-set matchup in the UAAP women's volleyball. Fast, focused, and fearless. Here's everything you need to know as you jumpstart your day. I'm Charles Lejano. As oil prices hike, more people opted to brave long lines for public transportation instead of driving. Gerard de la Peña with the details.
Taxi driver Dennis Cataylo used all his coins just to fuel up his taxi. He was one of many motorists who did a last-minute gas up prior to the oil price hike on Tuesday. Dennis says he barely earns now.
Nagpakarga ka ng magkano?
1,700 sir, 1,750. Tapos ang boundary ko 1,000. Ang natira sa akin 200.
Winnie, a TNVS rider, shares this sentiment.
Dalawang anak ko, di nga naman, nangungupahan pa ako. Wala, tibid-tibid lang. Itlog, tuyo, noodles.
Ito mataas din ang...
Yun nga eh. Wala, di talaga magkakasya. Sana taasan nila yung per namin. Yun lang yung hinihiling namin, taasan nila yung per.
Diesel prices have increased by 6 pesos and 55 centavos per liter, while gasoline is pricier by 2 pesos and 70 centavos per liter. Prices of kerosene, meanwhile, are up by 5 pesos and 45 centavos per liter. In this gas station in Manila, diesel is almost at 81 pesos per liter. Gasoline can go as high as 83 pesos. With the soaring costs, Joshua chooses to leave behind his car and commute instead. He now saves 400 pesos daily by taking public transport. Never mind the long lines and the struggle to get a ride.
Mas accessible naman siya. Kaysa magsasakyan ka, traffic din naman. Sayang lang din sa gasolina.
For an economist, a hybrid work setup might come in handy.
The businesses in the Philippines should figure out a way, to encourage more hybrid work, so to lessen the expenditure on unnecessary travels.
Oil prices may only continue to increase in the coming weeks. The Energy Department has attributed the oil price hike to the increased summer demand in countries located at the Northern Hemisphere. Other factors include the more relaxed quarantine restrictions in China, as well as Europe's ban on oil imports from Russia. For News 5, Gerard de la Peña, we are One News.
Still, because of the oil price hike, some people are choosing to ride e-vehicles, such as bikes and scooters, as alternatives to driving cars and commuting. Mon Gualvez with the story.
At the height of the pandemic, when commuting options were limited, Alan bought his e-bike to ferry him to and from work at the university. And now that fuel prices are soaring high, he's not letting go of his bike just yet.
Yung gasolina ko dati, nagkakarga ako ng probably twice a week. So nung gumamit ako ng e-bike, naging once a week na lang.
E-scooter, meanwhile, is the weapon of choice for 25-year-old Dang, saving her the agony of commuting. But she admits, traversing EDSA has its risk.
Kasi medyo, medyo nakakatakot din po na pag umaarangkada ka ganyan, di mo kita yung kung sino nasa likod mo.
The dangers are real for users of these alternative modes of transportation. Up to May this year, the MMDA has already recorded 80 accidents involving e-vehicle users.
Maraming discourteous na drivers na hindi nagbibigayan, and most of the time ang nagiging liability nito yung mga e-bikes, motorcycles, bicycle riders.
To help ensure their safety on the road, the agency, together with Metro Manila LGUs, call for the implementation of Republic Act 11697 or the Electric Vehicle Industry Development Act, which had just been passed April 15, as well as the administrative order from the LTO on the consolidated guidelines for all types of electric motor vehicles. Meanwhile, the MMDA also reminds that some e-vehicles still require license and registration.
Yung mga sasakyan na yon, limited lang siya sa private roads, bike lanes, limited to barangay roads and local roads.
Violators can be fined 1,000 up to 10,000 pesos and their e-vehicle may be impounded. The MMDA and e-vehicle drivers continue to appeal for road sharing and road courtesy among all motorists. For News 5, Mon Gualvez, we are One News.
The country's inflation jumped to its highest in 3.5 years last month. But some experts warn the worst is yet to come. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez with a report.
Inflation in May jumped to 5.4%, the highest level since November 2018. That's also way above the government's official target, worsened by runaway transport and fuel prices.
Nakita natin itong mga nakaraang buwan na nagsimulang kumbaga mag-spill over yung effect ng increased transport doon sa food at food basket natin.
Pretty much everything in the basket, fish and meat, vegetables, beverages, oil and electricity, registered rapid increases in the past month. That's because apart from skyrocketing gas prices, the supply chain and shipping disruptions caused by the war in Ukraine. For instance, bread has become more expensive because of a shortage of flour, and analysts say the worst is yet to come.
We're looking at 5.7 for this June as the peak. But for me personally, at least at this point, I'm seeing it may be actually higher. So but we're still hopeful that, as mentioned earlier, that it will taper off eventually.
Local oil companies raised diesel prices by a whopping 6 pesos and 55 centavos per liter. This year alone, diesel prices have jumped more than 30 pesos per liter. Meanwhile, gasoline is up by 2 pesos and 70 centavos, while kerosene by 5 pesos and 45 centavos a liter. The government has been providing fuel subsidies and discounts to drivers, but the Energy Department says it's running out of funds to cover that budget.
We really have to go on moving towards looking at the reality that any excess of those increases that will not be covered by subsidy will be passed on ultimately to the consumer.
The Bangko Sentral has already signaled it may need to hike interest rates a few more times this year to curb inflation. Mobile journalist Pamela Vasquez, we are One News.
The OCTA Research Group says the recent uptick in COVID-19 cases is not a cause for concern. However, Dr. Guido David told 1PH's Sa Totoo Lang that Filipinos should remain cautious and vigilant. He explained that although they're no longer seeing a surge similar to what was seen back in January and last year, it's still possible for the country's positivity rate to rise. David said Metro Manila, for one, is seeing consistent 10% upticks in cases per week. But the cause is not yet clear, and that's why for now, OCTA says it is against the lifting of the state of emergency, as well as the alert level status, so that the country can always be prepared for a possible rise in cases.
I would err on the side of caution. Ito yung parang test natin na makikita natin kung tutuloy yung cases na tumaas. Kung hindi naman, then maybe they could have the discussion na alisin na natin yung state of emergency, alisin na rin yung alert level. Pero again, kumbaga, let's not rush into it. Tingnan natin mabuti kung talagang hindi na tumatas yung pila na kaso.
Let's dig into the latest news on UAAP Season 84 Women's Volleyball. UST booked the third semifinals ticket after beating UE in Game 1 yesterday. April Tapia led the Golden Tigresses' balanced attack with 13 points, while Ea Laure chipped in with 12 points, 12 receptions, and 7 digs. The NU Lady Bulldogs overcame a shaky start in Game 2 to move to a win away from sweeping the elimination round. Despite being overwhelming favorites, the Lady Bulldogs surprisingly struggled as they lost the first set to the FEU Lady Tamaraos 24-26. But they eventually heeded the call of libero Jen Yerva to dominate the remainder of the game. DLSU, meanwhile, notched their 5th straight win, denying Ateneo in a nail-biter yesterday. Although Faith Nisperos and Takako Fujimoto saved 2 match points for the Blue Eagles, the Lady Spikers' gap was just too large to close. This as Jin Soreño and super rookie Lea Malaluan led the way with 17 points apiece. Adamson grabbed a piece of the 4th seed after eliminating UP in 3 straight sets. With this win, the Lady Falcons knotted Ateneo at 7-6, heading into the final day of the elimination round tomorrow, with one last postseason ticket on the line. Here are the stories to watch out for later this Wednesday. Today is the deadline for the filing of Statement of Contribution and Expenditures, or SOSE, for the 2022 elections. Outgoing Health Secretary Francisco Duque is set to discuss the government's pandemic exit plan. And basketball action continues at the PBA Philippine Cup. Colombian Jeep will take on the NLEX at 3 p.m., while Phoenix will square off against San Miguel at 6 p.m. And that's how the day is shaping up to be. Join us again later at 9 a.m. as we monitor the day's biggest stories from sunrise to sundown. You can also catch One News on Signal Play. Register for a free account at www.signalplay.com so you can stream One News live anytime and anywhere. I'm Charles Lejano. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We're One News.